she thought it was a kidnapping. The billionaire tech CEO mistook her Prius for a lift and ended up finding the love of his life. Before we begin, tell us, where are you watching from? And at the end, don't forget to rate this story. Now, let's dive in. The city breathed in that restless way it does on a Friday evening, streets slick with rain from an earlier storm, traffic crawling like a tired animal, and the skyline glowing with 1,000 golden windows. In the midst of it all, standing on the curb outside a midtown conference center, Liam Cross adjusted his cufflinks and cursed under his breath. His Tesla, usually a silent chariot waiting at his command, had died mid-charge. Not a full breakdown, just enough to strand him. For the first time in over a decade, the CEO of Cross Dynamics, a man whose name was whispered in boardrooms and startup pitches alike, had to rely on a rideshare app. He tapped his smartwatch for the 5th time in 3 minutes. The car was late. Or maybe he was just impatient. Either way, his investor meeting was in 20 minutes, and he hated being late. Then, like a mirage in the urban haze, a silver Toyota Prius pulled up beside him at the red light. The license plate matched the one on his phone. The driver, a woman with dark, wind-tousled hair and a coffee cup in the cup holder, glanced at her screen, then at him. He didn't hesitate. The car was the right color, the right model, the right moment. He yanked the rear door open, tossed his leather briefcase inside, and slid into the back seat. Drive. Just drive, he said sharply, already pulling out his phone to fire off a last-minute email. Silence. Then, a voice, calm, but edged with confusion, came from the front. What? Liam looked up. The woman was staring at him in the rearview mirror, one hand on the wheel, the other frozen mid-sip. Who are you? She asked. I'm your ride request, he snapped, not looking up from his screen. Let's go. Her eyes widened. You're robbing me. Liam finally looked up. What? No. I'm your lift. I don't have a lift, she shot back. I'm Nina Reyes, and this is my car. Before he could respond, she slammed the accelerator. The Prius shot forward with a growl, weaving through traffic like a getaway car in a movie. Liam dropped his phone, gripping the seat. Hey! What are you doing? Saving my life, she shouted, voice tight with adrenaline. I don't carry cash, okay. Take the car, take my phone, just don't hurt me. I'm not a robber. Liam yelled, half laughing now, half panicking. I thought you were my driver. She didn't slow down. Then why are you in my backseat like a mob boss? Because your car matched the app. She finally pulled over in a quiet side street, engine still humming. They sat in silence for a long moment, the only sound the distant wail of a siren and the drip of rain from the awnings above. Then, slowly, she turned to look at him. And laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A real, deep, belly laugh, the kind that starts in the gut and bubbles up like joy can't be contained. Liam stared, then joined her. The absurdity of it hit them both at once, a billionaire mistaken for a criminal, a graphic designer fleeing from a man in a $3,000 suit. You, Liam said, wiping a tear from his eye, are the most terrifying Lyft driver I've ever had. And you, she shot back, still grinning, are the worst robber I've ever met. No mask. No weapon. Just a Rolex and a bad attitude. They laughed until their sides hurt. When the moment passed, she exhaled. So, you're really not going to hurt me? I promise, he said, holding up his hands. Unless you drive like that again. She smirked. Only when startled by rogue CEOs. He stepped out, retrieved his briefcase, then paused. Look, I'm actually headed downtown. My real ride's still MIA. Any chance you're going that way? She raised an eyebrow. You want a real ride now? If you're offering. Nina sighed, but there was a spark in her eye. Fine. But only because you look like you've never taken public transit in your life. I haven't, he admitted. I build apps. I don't use them. As they drove, the city lights blurred past. They talked about her work, his company, her terrible 90s playlist. This is not music, he teased, his obsession with efficiency. You're like a robot with a heartbeat, she shot back. And somewhere between 5th and 34th, something shifted. When they reached the Cross Dynamics Tower, he stepped out, then turned back. Thanks, Nina. For not actually crashing into a pole. She smirked. Next time, check the license plate. He walked toward the glass doors, but halfway there, he glanced back. She was laughing to herself, really laughing, as she pulled away. And for the first time in years, Liam Cross felt something he couldn't name. Something warm. Something real. Something like the beginning. The next Monday morning, the 12th floor of Cross Dynamics hummed with its usual rhythm, the soft clack of keyboards, the murmur of design teams debating color palettes, the occasional burst of laughter from the break room. But to Nina Reyes, the air felt different. Charged. Like the moment before thunder rolls across a summer sky. Because he had been here. Again. 3 times already that week, Liam Cross, the man whose name was etched into the building's lobby like a modern-day king, had appeared on her floor. Not for meetings. Not for announcements. Just there. Lingering near the design studio. Picking up files. Checking on branding. Grabbing coffee. Nina wasn't fooled. On Wednesday, she caught him leaning against the wall outside her cubicle, pretending to read a memo on his tablet. His tie was slightly loose, his sleeves rolled up, and his eyes, sharp, intelligent, and suddenly nervous, flicked to hers the second she stepped out. You again, she said, arms crossed, a smile playing at the corner of her lips. Lost, Mr. Cross. I have the right to walk around my own company, he replied, voice smooth but eyes betraying him. Sure, she said, stepping closer. But usually CEOs don't inspect logo mock-ups 3 times a day. He grinned, that lopsided, rare smile that made him look less like a billionaire and more like a boy caught stealing cookies. Maybe I like your work. Or maybe, she said, leaning in slightly, you like watching me work. He didn't deny it. Didn't look away. Just held her gaze, and in that silence, something passed between them, unspoken, undeniable. But someone else noticed. Daniel Park, lead designer and quiet observer of life's subtleties, watched from across the room. He'd known Nina for 2 years, had admired her long before he ever dared speak to her. He remembered the first time she walked into the studio, headphones on, humming a song he didn't know, her sketchbook filled with wild, colorful ideas. He'd been in love ever since. And now, he saw the way Liam looked at her, not with the cold appraisal of a CEO, but with the hunger of a man realizing he's been asleep for years. It scared him. At lunch, Daniel found her in the sunlit corner of the rooftop garden, sketching on a notepad. He handed her a small envelope. I made this for you, he said softly. Inside was a hand-drawn logo concept, her initials, NR, woven into delicate watercolor strokes, like something from a dream. It's beautiful, Daniel, she said, genuinely touched. You have such a gift. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Unlike some people, he said, glancing toward the glass tower where Liam's office sat on the 40th floor, I don't need $1 billion company to get your attention. Nina looked at him, really looked. She saw the kindness, the quiet devotion. And her heart ached. "Daniel," she said gently, "you're sweet. Truly. But Liam, he's just curious." "Curious?" Daniel let out a quiet laugh. "He had IT reroute your printer so he could fix it. He accidentally sat next to you in the cafeteria. He showed up at a junior designer's pitch just to hear your feedback." He met her eyes. "That's not curiosity, Nina. That's a campaign." She didn't answer. Because deep down, she knew he was right. And as she looked out over the city, the wind tugging at her hair, she wondered, not if Liam liked her, but why. And more importantly, what would happen when curiosity turned into something deeper? Something neither of them could control. It began with a box. One morning, Nina arrived at her desk to find a sleek, pastel-colored box tied with a silk ribbon. Inside, 6 artisanal donuts from a tiny Brooklyn bakery that only opened at dawn and sold out by 10. A card sat on top, handwritten in bold, confident script. "For the woman who drives like a getaway driver. L." She laughed out loud. So did half the design floor. It was ridiculous. Over the top. And undeniably sweet. But Daniel saw it differently. That afternoon, he placed a small, carefully wrapped package on her chair. No note. Just her name written in pencil on the corner. Inside was a handmade sketchbook, thick, textured paper, bound in deep blue leather. Tucked in the first page was a note in his neat, looping handwriting. "For the artist who sees the world differently. Draw your truth." Nina ran her fingers over the cover, touched. "Daniel, this is incredible." He smiled, but his eyes were distant. "I know you like real things. Things with soul." She didn't miss the unspoken contrast. The war had begun. 2 days later, a florist delivered a bouquet of rare black orchids to her desk, exotic, elegant, almost otherworldly. The card read, "Because you're one of a kind." Signed, of course, with a single initial. Daniel responded with silence, for a day. Then, he handed her a vintage Polaroid camera, its body scratched with time, its lens still flawless. "It belonged to my grandmother," he said. She said real moments aren't captured with apps. They're felt. Nina's throat tightened. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said softly. "Because when I look at you, I don't see a challenge. I see home." Her heart twisted. Then came the client presentation. Nina had spent weeks on a campaign for Verdant, a luxury eco-brand. Her vision was bold, raw textures, hand-drawn typography, a video ad shot entirely on film. It was personal. It was art. But the client, a sharp-suited executive with a voice like ice, tore it apart. "Too emotional," he said. "Not sleek enough. Where's the polish? The perfection?" The room went quiet. Nina sat frozen, her face pale, her hands clenched under the table. Then, from the back, a voice cut through the silence. "That concept," said Liam Cross, standing slowly, "was developed in 72 hours by one of our most talented designers. It's bold. Original. Human. If you can't see that, maybe we're not the right fit." The room fell dead silent. The client blinked. "Are you threatening to walk away?" "I'm honoring her work," Liam said, calm but unshakable. "And I won't apologize for it." Nina looked at him, stunned. Touched. Terrified. Because this wasn't curiosity anymore. This was loyalty. This was choice. Later, in the break room, Daniel found Liam pouring black coffee into a paper cup. "You didn't have to do that," Daniel said, voice low. "I know," Liam replied, not looking up. "You think charm and power win everything?" Liam turned, finally meeting his eyes. "No. But I think she deserves to be seen." Daniel paused, then stepped closer. "Then prove it. Not with gifts. Not with speeches. With time. Be there when she's tired. When she doubts herself. When no one's watching." Liam held his gaze. "I will." And for the first time, Daniel saw not a rival, but a man who finally understood what love really cost. 2 weeks passed like a held breath. The office returned to its rhythm, keyboards tapping, meetings humming, designs evolving. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. The donuts, the orchids, the Polaroid, the speech, they weren't just gestures anymore. They were echoes of a deeper current, pulling everyone toward a moment none of them could name. And then, the storm hit. It rolled in on a Friday evening, sudden and fierce. Thunder cracked over Manhattan like a warning. Rain fell in thick, silver sheets, turning sidewalks into rivers and taxis into ghosts in the fog. By 8 p.m., the building had emptied. Lights flickered off floor by floor. But not the 12th. Nina sat at her desk, finalizing the pitch for a new client, her fingers stiff from hours of typing, her eyes burning from screen glare. Her phone had died an hour ago. No Uber. No subway. No umbrella. She sighed, packed her bag, and stepped into the downpour. Cold water hit her like a slap. She pulled her jacket over her head and started toward the subway, already dreading the damp ride home. Then she stopped. Across the street, under the awning of the building's service entrance, stood a man. Liam Cross. He wore a dark coat, collar turned up, and held 2 black umbrellas, one open, one closed. He wasn't on his phone. Wasn't pacing. Just waiting. She crossed slowly, water pooling in her shoes. "You didn't have to wait," she said, voice barely above the storm. "I didn't," he said. "I wanted to." She looked at him, really looked. His hair was damp at the temples. His eyes, usually so sharp and controlled, were soft. Vulnerable. They walked in silence for a block, the rhythm of the rain filling the space between them. Cars hissed past. Neon signs bled color onto wet pavement. The city felt distant, dreamlike. Then she asked the question that had been burning inside her since that first chaotic ride. "Why me?" she said, not looking at him. "You could have anyone. Models. Celebrities. Women who wear couture and say the right things at parties." He stopped walking. And for the first time, the mask of the CEO was gone. "I don't want anyone," he said quietly. "I want you. The woman who called me out in a parking lot. Who laughed at my terrible jokes. Who didn't flinch when I showed up with orchids like some overconfident fool." He smiled, just slightly. "You don't care about my name. Or my money. You see me. Even when I don't." Nina's breath caught. But she didn't speak. So he kept going. "What about Daniel?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Liam exhaled, long and slow. "I saw the way he looks at you," he admitted. "Like you're his whole world. And I realized. I don't want to be the guy who takes that away. I don't want to win because I have more power, more money, more everything." He turned to her. "I want to be the guy who earns you. Who proves, every day, that I'm worthy of standing beside you." The rain softened. Nina looked at him, at the men who had stormed into her car like a thief, who had fought silent battles with kindness and courage, who had chosen her not because she was easy, but because she was real. And slowly, without a word, she reached out. She took his hand. It was cold. Hers was colder. "Walk me home," she said, her voice steady now. "And this time, don't get into the wrong car." He smiled, not the CEO's smirk, but something deeper, truer. "No," he said. "This time, I got it right." 6 months later, the city wore autumn like a golden cloak. Leaves swirled in the breeze outside Cross Dynamics, and the air carried the scent of roasted chestnuts from a vendor on the corner. Inside, Nina Reyes walked into the main conference room at 7 p.m. on a Friday, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "An emergency design review," she said, dropping her bag. "At this hour? On a weekend?" Liam stood by the projector, hands in his pockets, trying and failing to look innocent. "You said you wanted transparency." "I said I wanted honesty," she corrected, "not corporate theatrics." He smiled. "Same thing, if you're doing it right." The room was dark. The massive screen at the front flickered to life. Then, magic. A digital timeline unfolded, a mosaic of moments, stitched together in light and memory. First, the silver Prius at the red light. A grainy still from a traffic camera. Liam yanking the door open. Nina's shocked face. Then, her laughing in the break room, holding the donut box. Daniel handing her the sketchbook. The orchids on her desk. Next, the verdant presentation. Her standing tall. Liam rising to defend her. The room falling silent. Then, a photo Daniel had taken without anyone noticing, Nina at lunch, sunlight on her face, smiling at something Liam had said. Not flirty. Not performative. Just real. And finally, the Lyft receipt from that first night. The one that started it all. Passenger, Liam Cross. Driver, none. Status, cancelled. The room was quiet. Nina's breath caught. Liam stepped forward, voice softer now, stripped of all pretense. "You thought it was a robbery," he said. "But it was the best decision I never made." The screen dimmed. A single sentence appeared in bold, clean type. "Love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up. Every day. Even when you're scared." Then, slowly, he dropped to one knee. No fanfare. No orchestra. Just the hum of the projector and the quiet rhythm of her heartbeat. "Nina Reyes," he said, pulling out a small velvet box, "you challenged me, you laughed at me, you saw me when I didn't even see myself. You're fierce, brilliant, and stubborn as hell." He opened the box. Inside, a ring, simple, elegant, with a diamond that caught the light like a star. "Will you let me be the co-founder of your life?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. She didn't hesitate. "Yes," she whispered. Then, with a shaky smile, "but only if I get equity." He laughed, a full, joyful sound, and pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home. Outside the glass walls, Daniel stood watching. And he smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a bitter one. A happy one. He stepped inside, holding a small wooden box. "For you both," he said. Inside were 2 wedding bands, handcrafted, sleek, engraved with a line of tiny binary code. Nina pulled out her phone, snapped a photo, and ran it through a decoder app. The screen flashed. "Love, error 404 not found now installed." She hugged him tightly. "You're a good man, Daniel." He looked at Liam. "And you," he said, voice firm but kind, "are finally worthy of her." At their wedding, under string lights and a glowing projection of their favorite album covers, Radiohead, Fleetwood Mac, The Cranberries, Liam pulled Nina close. He whispered in her ear, "Still think I was robbing you?" She kissed him, long and slow. "Best heist of my life," she said. And as the music played and the city sparkled beyond the trees, two souls, once strangers, once mistaken, now bound, danced into the rest of their story. Thank you for walking through this journey. If you'd like, you can now share where you're watching from, and don't forget to rate this story.